Hello everyone, welcome to Let's Crack UPSC English. So today in this ethics session, we are going to discuss two most important concepts. So one, we are going to discuss about the moral and political attitudes, and then we'll be discussing about persuasion mechanism and social influence. So these two are very important because as a bureaucrat, when we are introducing a new scheme or when there is some social evil or any practice which is problematic to the people, then we should use all these social influence and persuasion mechanisms. So going into the topic, so this we are going to do with India's largest learning platform, UPSC, CSE, with India's largest learning platform, that is Unacademy. So how I call it as India's largest learning platform is that we have daily live classes, and then live test and quizzes and unlimited access. So what do I mean by unlimited accesses? Both live classes and recorded sessions. So you can watch the recorded sessions in number of time. There is no limit like you have to watch it only once or twice or something like that. So you can download the app, either using the Google Play Store or Apple App Store. So you can download it according to the OS you are using in your mobile phone. And then about me, I'm an engineer basically, and I have 4 years of teaching experience. I'm an anthropology faculty who have mentored more than 100 students, and I have experience in teaching NEET also. And this is the Telegram channel. You can join the Telegram channel where I'll be posting more information and where we'll be discussing even more good things. And this is the profile link of myself in the Unacademy platform. There you can follow me and get the regular updates of whatever class I'm doing on the Unacademy. And what are the classes I offer you is that in the morning we have polity class on YouTube, and in the afternoon we have ethics for mains, 3:30 p.m. on daily basis, and quick revision for prelims. For prelims, what are all the revisions we have? That we have quick revision for prelims 2020, and Telegram channel. This is Unacademy underscore Subha Kirtana. There you can search it in the Telegram and you can join, or either use the link. Okay, in the previous slide I have given you, and you have the opportunity to interact with India's top educators. Okay, they're all top educators. So you have an opportunity to have interaction with people who really know about UPSC, who knows what UPSC expects from you. So that's a very good thing, and the comprehensive syllabus structure will help you to score more mark, to understand what you should do and what you need not do. Without time wasting, we have to move forward in the preparation process. That this will help you in a very lot manner. And then this is the subscription details. In the subscription detail, you can just see how, when you have, for each in the months you have offer, so that you can make use of it. See, for 12 months it's about 54 percentage of offer. Along with this, I'm giving you one more gift, which is my code SUBA. So you can use this code and get a 10 percentage of offer. Fine. Next, so there is something called as Plus and Iconic. So I'm talking about subscription. So what is Plus and Iconic is that, see, in Plus you have live classes, test series, unlimited practice, and structured schedule. Along with that, in Iconic, what you have in Iconic, you have something called as personal coach. Okay, so personal coach, daily mains answer writing session, study planner, and personalized feedback, which will help you to boost your marks. Okay, so UPSC is about scoring the maximum mark so that you can get the desired service. So that is one thing, and that is called as Iconic. So you can use Iconic, subscribe to Iconic using my code SUBA, where you get a 10 percentage of offer. Okay, so both for 1 year or 2 year subscription, and also in Plus you can use my code Plus and Iconic. For both, my code is applicable, SUBA code is applicable. You can use that to get a 10 percentage of offer. Fine. Next, it's SUBA, very simple. Okay, so this is my special class session where we have lots of opportunities to interact with each other. There we can ask polls, we can ask questions, and then you can ask doubts to me. I will immediately respond, and then all these things, will help us in a very good format. And these special classes are free. So you can interact with me, you can attend my classes on the Unacademy website or Unacademy app, and they are free. So you are not going to pay anything, but you can make use of those courses. Fine, thank you. And then starting the class, moral and political attitudes. So we have been discussing about what is attitude, and then what are all the kinds of attitude. We discussed about what are all the components of attitude, and we also discussed about how attitude can be formed. So now we are going to discuss about two important concepts, moral and political attitudes, especially in terms of personal and public life. These two kinds of attitude play a very important role. Okay, so we'll be seeing what are moral attitudes and political attitudes. So moral and political attitudes are based on several factors. Okay, so generally moral attitude is related to some morality, like characteristics like being good or bad. So this moral attitude shows you or expresses about yourself whether you are a good person or a bad person. But political attitude is related to people's belief system towards different political ideologies. So we'll be seeing what are those kinds of political attitudes and moral attitudes. So fundamental moral attitudes. So when we discuss about what are all the fundamental moral attitudes, you'll have an idea. So what are these fundamental moral attitudes will include, like goodness, purity, truthfulness, and then beauty of nature or of art, stability, power of a state, and then genius. So all these things come under the concept of moral attitudes. So we'll see what are those. First is reverence. So what is reverence? Reverence means we have a deep respect for something is called as reverence. Okay, having a deep respect for something is called as reverence. It's like no true love, no justice, no kindness, no self development, no purity, no truthfulness are possible. No, it's deep respect. Without this, no, without this reverence, you can't have you can't have a true love. Without respecting someone, you cannot actually love them. Okay, without respecting someone, you can't be very pure in your relationship with them. It can be a mother, or it can be a father, it can be a partner, it can be a brother, it can be anyone you are in relationship with. And without this deep respect, you can't have a pure form of any kind of emotions for them. Fine. So only to man possessing reverence does the world religion open itself. So at the same time, one most important thing is we say some feeling we have towards God as bhakti. Bhakti is nothing but reverence. Bhakti is a deep respect and deep belief that when there is a problem for me, God will come and save me. So it is applicable to all form of religion. Fine. So that is called as reverence. Next, faithfulness. Faithfulness, it's an indispensable element of moral greatness. So faithfulness means you being faithful to others, you being true to others is called as faithfulness. So no, without faithfulness, culture cannot be formed, progress and knowledge cannot be formed, community cannot be formed. So you are in a community. Why? Because you have faith on the others that they will do something good to you. The same thing, even knowledge. So you are listening to my class because you have a faith that I will always teach something good to you. So this is called as faithfulness. So the faith you keep on me, and I have to create that faith in you. It's a two-way process. It's not just like you can keep faith on me just like me without doing anything. The same way. So faithfulness is one of the important moral attitude. It is your attitude towards me. So that's why, whenever we write leave letters in schools and colleges, we write it like yours faithfully. It means I will be true to you, you can believe me. Okay, so that is one kind of important fundamental moral attitude. Veracity and truthfulness. So veracity and truthfulness is always being honest or always saying truth. That is called as veracity or truthfulness. Okay, so one thing we can call the whole of his life and everything in which he is morally positive, and he is threatened by untruthfulness. What if I am not being truthful? That fear if a person is having, that person is truthful in nature. So we can also call that a man who is truthful is genuine, so he cheats neither himself nor other people. Here, truthfulness doesn't mean you should be truthful only to others. Being truthful to oneself is also very important. That's why I always tell you people, when you are preparing for the examination, don't answer anyone's question. Just answer your own question. Are you preparing properly? Am I doing it in the right way? Am I giving actually the effort I can give? Am I doing my maximum? Or can I do even more? Then start doing it. So you have to be honest to yourself first of all. You have to be truthful to yourself first of all. Only then you can be truthful to others. Fine, next. So see the last statement, an education which does not lay emphasis on truthfulness and veracity condemns itself to failure. That is what they're saying. So if an education is not teaching us truthfulness, then the education can be called a failure. That is why under national education policy, it is recommended that value-added education should be made compulsory. Even some marks also can be offered to them. So next is goodness. Goodness is, having a very good heart. Simply having a very good heart is called as goodness. Okay, a man who's not good in any of the forementioned way is last account always limited, even stupid. See, the truly good man means he should never be stupid and narrow, even though he may be slowly intellectually and not gifted for intellectual activities. That person should be never be stupid and narrow. Simply narrow means you should not be selfish. You should not be always thinking in one point of view. So you should be broad-minded. Broad-minded means you should be ready to accept people, ready to accept differences, ready to accept, the people how they are. It's the same thing. So we expect others to change for us, but we are not ready to change us for others. So a man who's actually good will always think from others' point of view and will be ready to accept them and will be ready to do good things to people. So this is one important fundamental attitude. So coming to fundamental attitude, you could have understood something. Moral attitudes are more important for private life, okay, private life or personal life. But now we are starting political attitude. Political attitude is more important in terms of a society, community, or in a country. If you are under any political control, if you are under any kind of political organization, you will definitely have a political attitude, and we'll be seeing what are those ideology. First of all, what is a political attitude? What we saw about attitude, attitude is a favor or disfavor towards something. The same way, political attitude means favor or disfavor to some political ideology. That is called as political attitude. I like communism. That is my political attitude. I like socialism. That is my political attitude. I don't like this. I don't like that. So these kind of ideology, this party's ideology is not something which is attracting me. I'm not, comfortable with that political party's agenda. So these are kinds of political attitudes. Fine, you can see here. See, political attitude is an expression for favor or disfavor towards different political ideologies, politicians, and political culture prevailing in a particular society. So democracy provides with people with the opportunity to active citizens rather than passive subjects. So you can see that in democracy, the government is giving the opportunity to express your political attitude, like voting. Through voting system, you can select a political party, or you can select politicians who is in line with your political attitude. Fine. So this is called as political attitude. So the evaluation done by the citizens along with their personality traits and environmental condition lead to the formation of their attitude towards the politics of the day. So when we see about what are all the determinants of political attitudes, we'll understand. So a political attitude of a person is not just depending upon one trait, it's based on different criterias. Like the attitudes, the person's own trait, and then based on the environmental situation. Environment here is not the literal meaning, the surrounding situations, and these things will combine to form the political attitude of that day. Fine. So what are the different political ideologies? First, see, there are different political ideologies. We should understand these very well. I will also discuss it by comparative methods. Fine, don't worry. So radical. So what is radical? Radical, the name itself means someone who someone who is not satisfied with the government and wants change in the government. Okay, who's very much extremely dissatisfied with the society, and therefore is impatient and less than extreme proposal to change the society. So this I can give you best example, Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King. So these people were dissatisfied by the way the government were treating the citizens. So they rebelled. So they had their own way to rebel and to bring change in the society. So simply radical means they are dissatisfied with the way the society exists and they want to have a change. They do that change in form of a revolutionary change that is called as radical. And the example is Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King. Liberals. So liberals are people who advocate principles of liberty, equality, and democracy and are less dissatisfied, which means they are more satisfied with the fundamentals of society. Now, how the society is, they are satisfied with how the society is. Okay, they do have some, they do have some dissatisfaction, but that's negligible. Okay, so that is what is called as liberals. They represent the reformatory school that highlight the shortcomings of society and try to address them through appropriate forms. Okay, what is the formal form to appropriate? So that is called as liberals. Moderates. So moderates are also satisfied with the society but have a thought that there might be some change. If there is any change, it will be good. So liberals are very less dissatisfied, but even if there is some change, they do it in an appropriate manner. Moderates are like they are satisfied with the society, but they think some change can be happening, but that also they do it in a very passive form. Okay, so radicals completely dissatisfied. Liberals are very less dissatisfied. They do have very less dissatisfaction, and that too they express in a very appropriate format. But moderates are satisfied, but they are okay with change. If there is any change, also they are okay with. That is moderates. And the way they express the need for changes in a very moderate form or a passive form without disturbing the society. Okay, so that is what is moderates thought. Next is conservative. So conservative people are most supportive. For them, they don't want to talk about how the society is. They are okay with what is now. They don't want any change. So the people which I tell you resistance to change, these people have that, what is society is now is fine. This is good. Change is not needed kind of people. There is, conservatives are often accused that they lack vision, which is not actually completely true. What is the difference between conservative and liberal is that conservatives think that status quo is the best, but liberals think that we can achieve a better world by appropriate mechanism. That is called as conservative and liberals. I'm repeating, conservatives are okay; they are completely satisfied with what is now, but liberals want some change, but in an appropriate manner. But radicals also want to change, but in a very extreme manner, by revolution, like how Mahatma Gandhi did non-cooperation movement, Quit India movement, civil disobedience movement. All these are examples. Next, finally, reactionary. Reactionary are the only people who propose retrogressive change, who want change that leads to the past. Okay, so till now, whatever we saw, some people wanted change, some people did not want change, but these people want to go back, want to go reverse format. They want to go in the past. They want to go the previous condition. That is called as reactionary. Reactionary are the only people who want to go past, who want retrogressive change. Usually everybody have progressive change, but these people want retrogressive change. Some people you might have seen, those days were better. That thought is there, especially in terms of political attitude I'm talking about. Fine. Next. What are the factors determining the political attitude? Okay, I have some political attitude. What is the factor? One. First is motivation. For example, you can just see the political attitude of a rich person, middle middle class person, and a poor person. So rich person will be actually satisfied with what is happening because he is rich. So he will be mostly liberal or conservative. Mostly. So I'm not talking about everyone. Exceptions are always there, but exceptions are not examples. So mostly the rich people are satisfied. So what happens is that they are either liberals or conservatives. Middle class people or expecting some change. If change happens, they'll be happy. So mostly they are moderates or liberals. They want change, but they don't want to take a risk. So mostly they're moderates or liberals in nature. Poor people are radical in nature because they are completely dissatisfied by the society. So their political attitude will be they'll be dissatisfied and they want a reformatory change, immediate change. Next is coming to age. Usually at young age, we will have a more radical form of political attitude because we want to change the society very badly. But when we start becoming more aged, what happens is that once we start understanding, there are different possibilities. Now, some people will be like at young age, they'll be having some political ideology that will change after age. They might start properly understanding what is the political structure, and they might have a different attitude. Personality traits. Personality traits is I will compare a political ideology with my character. If I am a person who's very active and I want change in the society, then I will be radical in nature. But if I am someone who's not that mentally strong, who is not that rebel in kind of character, I'll be going with some smoother form of political ideology. And someone who always thinks about themselves also will have liberal or conservative ideology, but someone who thinks about society will be more radical in format. Assumption about human nature. The same way we start assuming about the person who's having some political ideology, based on that we might start having that political ideology or we might start hating that political ideology. We know very well there are certain peoples who vote for a particular political party for that person. Okay, so there are many political parties even today get votes because of some leader who was there before a very long time who is not even alive today, but because of that person's impact in the political party, even today they get vote banks. So this is called as assumption about human nature and family situation. So we always think about the family. Family is happy, if family is not happy, based on this also it keeps changing. And religion. So what the religion teaches. So what kind of value system the religion gives. So based on that value system of the religion, we start evaluating the political ideology and we take that political ideology. So in certain religion, they say that king is equal to God. At that situations, what happens is that we will not be ready to rebel against the government. But in certain religion, it says as being strong, being honest is very important. At that situation, we might start rebelling or we might start working for the change we need. So these are the important factor which determines what kind of political attitude a person has. And at the same time, based on the circle which we are in is also deciding what kind of political attitude I have. So at my young age, I will always reflect the political attitude of my parents or to an elder whom I admire. The same way, the political attitude depends upon the circle, family also. That is what I'm saying. Family also reflects our political attitude. So usually what happens in the family, mostly the members vote for a same kind of political party because they might share a similar political ideology or similar political attitude. Next, coming to more interesting and more important concept. What is that? Social influence and persuasion. So what is the social influence and persuasion? Both are related to some bringing some change in the attitude. But the thing is, social influence is when you do it in mass number. Persuasion is more of doing it in a personal format. Okay, so changing the attitude of a person is called as persuasion. Changing the attitude of people in general is called as social influence. So we'll be seeing them in detail. Social influence takes many forms and can be seen in conformity, socialization, peer pressure, obedience, leadership, persuasion, sales, and marketing. See, persuasion is like leadership. How a proper leader can influence his or her followers. It can be both positive or negative. Okay, all the leaders are not good sometimes. All the leaders are not bad also sometimes. So good leader influence their followers in a good manner. The vice versa happens also. Fine. So comparatively, young signs of social influence can trace its root to Second World War. So what happened in Second World War was Carl Hovland was a psychologist. So what happened at that time when there were soldiers who were very much fed up about the war. So Carl Hovland, he socially influenced by his speech, by his various methods. See, he influenced the American soldiers and ensured they fought against Japanese in a very energetic format. So after this, social influence became very famous, and now even it is seen as a kind of science. It is even used based on certain techniques, which is very successful, especially as a bureaucrat. When you bring in a new scheme, or when you see people are not accepting, or people are not following, or people are rejecting some kind of scheme which is very useful to them, schemes, policies, or any social evil practice which they are following, which you have to remove, then social influence is very, very important. Fine, let's see what are those. First is, and then persuasion is guiding oneself or another towards the adoption of some kind of attitude, mostly by using rational or symbolic methods. That's important. We do this persuasion by using rational or symbolic methods. You can change minds of people by various methods, but persuasion is by using rational, which by using a very proper method, a very ethical method is called as persuasion. For this, what you do is you have to win the heart of people. You have to make them give their heart and mind to you. Then you can make them listen to whatever you want them to do. Okay, so that should be in a very proper manner, in a very positive manner. So what are the methods of persuasion? Very interesting concept. I will also give you example. You can use this example also in your exams. So according to Robert Cialdini, there are six influences, Q, or weapons of influence he is calling about. So even though they might look some little bit violent, weapons of influence, actually they are not a violent weapon. They are more technical form of weapon which will give you foolproof results. So we'll see them. First is reciprocation. So what is reciprocation? Reciprocation is simply called as give and take policy. So what you do is, generally when you are entering into any restaurant, they offer you some welcome drink. Okay, restaurant or some boutique shop, or when you go to a jewelry, they offer you some juice. So what happens is that when you consume that juice, you have a feel of indebtedness to them. You feel that you owe them. And one more thing is, when you are coming out without buying anything, you feel a bit uncomfortable. So what happens is that, first of all, if you want something from someone, you give them something and make them feel that they owe you something, so that in return you might get what you want. That is simply called as reciprocation, give and take policy. That you are doing it in a very technical format. That is why in many shops, when you go inside, they give their hospitality. Obviously there is some reason behind it. It's not just hospitality. Yes, some places they do hospitality genuinely, but in some places this is one kind of trick. This is one kind of persuasion mechanism. Fine. So this is what is it's an extremely powerful tactic, and can even spur unequal exchanges. So you just give the juice, so that they buy you a jewelry. So juice is some 10 rupee of value, but they buy a jewelry of 10,000 rupees. See the difference. So you give something very simple and make them feel they owe you them, and then what happens is that you get what you want from them. The same way, by giving them something, some incentive, or giving them something what they want, and you ask them to change in a positive manner. Next, commitment and consistency. So what happens is that whenever we are studying case study, I'll just tell you a story. So there is a village. So in that village, what happened? Girls are not allowed for education. Okay, so what happens is that, as a responsible person, under the appropriate authority, there is a school construction over there. So when that school construction happens, you are making the village head to come and open that school. Okay, so chief guest is coming to that opening ceremony, and you are asking him to just, on the stage you're asking him to talk about girls education. So there he is giving a commitment that he will ensure that he will make girls study. So this is called as commitment. So you are making someone give a commitment, you know, or making them a situation where they can give a commitment, that is called as commitment. So when people give commitment, obviously they tend to stick to it. But sometimes some people might move away from the commitment. What you can do is, there you can remind them, or you can inform them, or make them remember about the commitment, and make them stay consistently within their commitment. Okay, this is what, this is the techniques politicians use in the election campaigns, and make people committed in the ideology. You could have seen, even some places, they make the people promise that I will vote only to you in the name of God. Also, that is also happening. We know very well, we don't, generally we don't cancel a promise made on the name of God or made on the name of mother. So this is sometimes used as a persuasion mechanism to, give a commitment, and make them stick to that particular commitment. This is also a persuasion technique. Social proof. So what is this social proof? You want something. So the same girl children example, I'll take it. So the same way, your girl children are not allowed to study. So you're going to show them a social proof. How? You're bringing an IPS officer, women IPS officer, or a women IAS officer, or someone, a governor who's a women governor. So when these people come and show, they are actually the social proof. When you show a social proof, the people will start developing a positive attitude, and people will start believing it. They will have a sense of hope in their mind. They'll have a sense of faith in their mind. So what happens is that it will easily help you to socially influence or persuade people from their mind. Okay, so this is called a social proof, like, by showing them what is right, by giving them a proof. Simple. Showing people what is right, or showing an individual what is right, by simply showing them a proof. For example, some parents might have a fear of sending their girl children for higher studies. It's not because they are discriminating, but they do have a fear of sending their girl children for higher studies because of some social evils. So what happens, the girl can persuade her parents by showing, okay, I'm going to this college is having a hostel facility, you can talk to the head of that warden, and then you can even come and visit. You're showing them a proof so that they get a fear of, they get a clearance of their fear, they get a sense of secure feeling. So this is called as social proof. So these kind of techniques you can use according to your examination, what question they are, you can use. We'll go to the next method, liking. So very important thing. So I'm coming to the class, so I'm start taking the class. So first thing is, if you don't like me, obviously you won't listen to the class. You will start skipping the class. So what I should do is, I should start taking the class the way you like, not the way I am just comfortable with. So if I make you like my class, then it's easy for me to deliver what I should deliver to you. The same way, when you go to some supermarkets, or you go to some, you know, a boutique shop, jewelry shop, or anywhere. Why do they employ charming people? Not just in the, in terms of appearance, also in the terms of how they speak, how they express what they think. So this is called as, so what happens when you go inside, when you have a pleasant feeling about that person, you buy that product even for that person's sake. Feel that you feel good with that person's approach, and you start buying that thing. So liking is one of the most important concept, and similarity also comes under this. So when you see something similar, you will start liking it, and when you start liking it, obviously you will have a positive attitude. So when you like someone, you cannot have a negative attitude. The same thing, you like something or someone. It can be, it can be anything. Fine. So liking is one of the important things. So people say yes to the people they like. So when you don't like someone, you mostly try to avoid them, mostly try to say no to them. But when you like someone, when they ask you something, you can never refuse it. So this liking method of persuasion is that, first make yourself pleasant, make yourself presentable, so that people will first like you, and then tell what you want. The same way, why, in many places, the movie actors or very famous personality or very successful in politics is because people already like them in some other field. So when they go to any other field, people support them. Okay, so this is called as liking. Okay, liking type of persuasion. Next is authority. So authority is one strong type of persuasion mechanism, like by showing the symbol of authority, like titles, appearance, possessions. So when I tell you something, you will listen. Yes. The same way, if someone in a higher authority tell you something, you can never refuse. That is why what happens is that generally in terms of some recommendations, generally in terms of some generally if you want to do something, you will ask a help of someone who's more in a more authoritative form, and you ask them to recommend. What happens is that when they recommend, the things happen faster. So using authority is a very very important way where the success rate is high, because everybody has respect to authority. Then money, respect to authority is there. When you evaluate respect to authority and money, obviously respect to authority is evergreen. So that is why authority is one of the important persuasion mechanism. That is why you can see that the prime minister himself will come and speak in terms of certain situation. Man ki baat. So in that you see the prime minister itself, when he speaks, people listen because he is a person who is there in some authority. Okay, then his individual identity, his authoritative identity is more powerful. Fine, that is the thing. First and last and most important thing is scarcity. So what is this scarcity? See, everyone is vulnerable to some form of principle of scarcity. What? It can be scarcity of anything. It can be scarcity of money. It can be scarcity of time. It can be scarcity of love. It can be scarcity of relationships, anything. So why scarcity is so important is that there are two important reasons. One, so when you think that a person or something is scarce in nature, we start valuing it in a very high format. Why gold is very costly? Because it is scarce in nature, because it is not available to anyone. So when you want people to accept something, makes it scarce, people will start fearing, what if it is not available to me in future? So they start valuing it more. That is why when you see in some shops, they'll say that, ma'am, only one piece is there, it is very cheap, please take it, otherwise it won't be available on the next time. So here you are creating a sense of scarcity. You could have heard that, right? Only two, if you are seeing in the online shopping, they'll be saying that few stocks left, only 5 pieces left. So what you feel like is, you won't even think about comparing the other products. You'll be like, okay, only five pieces are left, let me not miss it, I will buy it. So this is the creating sense of scarcity. So when things become less available, we could lose the chance to acquire them. We could not lose the chance to acquire them. So what happens is that we start taking them easily. The principle that we want all things that are out of our reach. If we see something is easily available, we don't. So it is as much as something is very rare. Okay, so when we think that something is always available, that is why they tell you, don't be available too much to someone because they might not value. In family it is different, but in general places, don't be always available as a person also. Or when you want something others to accept, don't give it for free, or don't what to say, don't make it too much available. Okay, that is the thing. So, fine. So hard to get things are perceived as better than easy to get things. So that is very important. The possibility of losing something is more powerful. So the possibility of losing something is more powerful motivator than of gaining something. Okay. So when instead of two kinds of method, I'll tell you. One is, if you do this, I will give you this. Instead of saying that, you can't actually get this because it is going to be over very soon. So two products are there. So one product is like, let's take it as product A, product B, product 1, product 2. So you're going to a supermarket, you're seeing two products. of same type, maybe let's take detergents. Okay, so detergent 1, detergent 2. So this detergent 1 is like 10 percentage offer you are seeing. It's like an incentive, but here you see that only one product is there. What does that mean is like many people have taken it. So immediately you have a feeling that only one product is there. What if it is not available? Or only two product is there. What if it is not available the next time? So you try to take all the two, all the three. So this is called as scarcity mechanism. So coming to persuasion, there are other kind of immoral methods of persuasion mechanisms also. But when asked when asked in case study, what you should do is in terms of case studies, so we will have classes on case studies, very important. So in that situation, when there is a question related to give suggestions to change the attitude, or generally they won't ask you a straight question called as attitude, they might ask suggest measures to bring in some situation, bring in some positive outcome. There you can use these kind of methods, liking method or social proof method. Social proof method is one of the most important method. Commitment method, when there is a communal violence, what you do is you make the leaders come and commit to each other saying that we won't fight again. When the leaders commit, what happened? The communal violence is having a very higher chance of to be coming to end very easily. So as a district collector, you should know the kinds of persuasion mechanism. As an IPS officer, as an IAS officer, no, generally in life, if you want to achieve something in life, if you want to bring a positive attitude in people's mind, you should be very aware of these persuasion mechanism, because these persuasion mechanism are we even don't know that these mechanisms are there sometimes, which we are actually using it day to day life. In reciprocation, we know very well. We want something, we go to our mother and ask, do you need any help? I'll do some help. You go to your brother and ask, do you want this? I will help you with this. So these kind of give and take policy, and then commitment and consistency. We ask our mother, our father, saying that, will you say yes whatever I ask? They'll be like, what is that? They will ask. We will say like, no. First tell me, will you say yes or not? When they say yes, we ask what we want. These are the persuasion mechanism we are doing in our day to life, but when done systematically will actually influence a very large number of people. Even a country can be influenced. That is how the people, the politicians are using these mechanisms to obtain whatever they want in from people, especially the votes are obtained from the people using the persuasion mechanism. Making yourself pleasant, making yourself presentable, making yourself trustworthy, all these things leads to the way where you can socially influence people. So as a bureaucrat especially, you should understand the need for social influence and persuasion. For doing this persuasion and social influence, you should understand the moral attitude and political attitude of that people. So when there is a place where they are, very fond of communism, there when you go and suggest them capitalism, do you think they will support you? Obviously not. They will start, be against you. So always to understand the needs of people, always to change the attitude of people, start with the needs of people, understanding the people's needs, emotional, and then also in terms of economical and also in terms of societal needs. Only then you can be a very successful bureaucrat. Fine. So thank you so much for this beautiful session. I'm really happy to share all these important topics in the ethics. So these are very simple concepts. You know it. Just revise them again and again. Ethics has two things. One is it is very easy to understand and it is very easy to forget, because you think that you understood well and you won't revise it again and again. And some people don't give importance like how they give to the other three GS papers and their optionals. Ethics itself has 250 marks. No other GS paper is having an individual subject exclusively given 250 marks. So you should understand how much important ethics is. The good scoring papers, the papers which will boost your rank, in that one such paper is ethics. With the proper understanding and proper practicing skill, I mean proper writing skill, you can score really well. You can be very satisfied, and you can be very hopeful that you can clear this exam for sure. Fine. So thank you so much once again. Meet you all in the next class. Like this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel. These videos are available in this platform. You can watch it n number of times and take your notes and use my code SUBA to get the 10% of discount when you subscribe. It's SUBA, just the first half of my name. Fine. So thank you. We'll meet again tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.